Hello, my lovely squishy friends. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing better than the audio on this podcast you're about to listen to. I don't know what happened. My producer doesn't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened, but at some point, fairly early into the episode you're about to listen to, there's some audio fuckery. It's not great, but there is really no way to reproduce what happened, and I'm just going to ask for you to bear with me while you listen to this next fabulous episode. And hopefully we will not have a repeat of that. I don't know what the fuck went on. You know what? Shit happens. There was a full moon, eclipse. There was some sort of, I don't fucking know. Anyway, please enjoy the episode as best you can. You audiophiles may cringe and hate life, but I think you'll get over it. I love you. Please stay squishy. No, seriously, stay squishy. This is Melina Lee Williams-Haas. I deeply appreciate you listening and taking the time to hang out with me. I will be addressing issues of life, the universe, and everything that are often bogged down and mired in shame and grief, and talk about how they can be repackaged to be useful and gorgeous and fucking awesome for you. So, sit back and relax, or, you know what? Sit up and freak out. However you prefer to listen. Let's go. All right, bitches. Welcome to the All That and Mo podcast. I have a special guest today. I'm super excited to introduce a friend of mine who I have known since I'm a little fucking kid. I think maybe kindergarten?
First grade, I believe.
First grade, at least?
First grade. Definitely first grade.
Definitely first grade. And I will say, while I was in the UK, I got a text message. I think you messaged me.
Probably, yeah.
And it was like maybe 2 a.m. in the UK. And he's like, yeah, so my book just dropped. And so I went on Amazon Kindle and pulled it up. And unfortunately, it was under 300 pages. And I have a lifelong commitment that if a book is under 300 pages, I read it at one time. I just read it in a go. It's one of my superpowers. It's just how it works. And so I was just like, God damn it, it's fucking 2 a.m. It's going to take me several hours to read this book, but that's all right. And thankfully, it was fucking badass. So I did not waste my time. And I just spent all night reading it. Several times had to get up to throw my phone and yell. So I am super delighted to introduce the anonymous author of
Seek the Risk.
A new book you can find on Kindle, on where else can folks find it?
Right now it's only on Amazon. Paperback and Kindle is on Amazon.
Very good. And I will say, first and foremost, to identify my friend, he is in fact a Caucasian individual. He's a white guy. And so you might be thinking, okay, do I really need to read another revelatory novel, another navel-gazing wankfest from cishet white guy? And you do, actually, because unlike so many books in this genre, it is so fucking brutally honest, dude. And this was the thing that really got me, is that so often when I'm reading things, because of my own neurospiciness, like I can just feel when things are shit. I can just look at someone and know they're full of crap. And what was really remarkable to me was that at every point throughout this, reading this and experiencing it, I truly felt like I was really hearing you share your shit. It did not feel like artifice. It did not feel like you were positioning yourself to be cool. It did not feel like you were showing off. And in fact, you called yourself out and brought yourself in on all of those points. It was really great. So I would love to hear a little bit about why you wrote this.
It was an accident. I didn't. I know it was an accident.
That's the best reason to write a book.
It really is. So many, like everything in my life has been an accident. It's just like something happens and I go, oh, let's just go that direction. But I want to back up 1 second and say how nervous I was sending you that text that I wrote a book. Hey, and I wrote, well, you're a brilliant writer, and I've read what you've written, and I've seen you perform, and I've known you my whole life, and I've heard you speak. And you're one of the most brilliant people I know. And I was like, oh, fuck, she's going to think it's shit. No. I was like, just send it. Finally, I sent it because but I was so nervous. And when you came back and said, and when you came back 3 hours after I had texted you. And you said, I love it. And I was great. How far did you get? And you were like, I finished it. I was like, I only texted you 3 hours ago, bitch.
Did I mention that we went to a school for gifted kids?
Yeah.
No, so we all, it was like, what is that? Like the X-Men, the school for...
Xavier. You're right, Xavier. So anyway, I just wanted to give a little backstory to that text because there was a lot more going on that you probably didn't know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, why did I write it? It was an absolute accident. In the book, my wife starts a blog, and she asked me to do some guest posts, and one of the guest posts I did was about coming out as open, as being public about being in a non-monogamous relationship. And it was just this little essay I wrote. But she published it, and I'm not a writer or anything, and then a couple years later, I kept thinking about it, and I was like, let me expound on that, because there was a lot more to the journey I went on around the non-monogamy. And so I wrote a 10-page essay, and then filed it away in the file system and totally forgot about it. And then during pandemic, a friend of mine came out to Colorado where I was, and we were snowboarding together, and he had recently opened up his marriage of 20 years and was struggling. And so we were talking back and forth, and he actually is a writer. Yeah. And then I said, I wrote an essay about this whole journey I went on. He's like, oh, I'd love to read it. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not a writer. He's like, no, let me read it. So I sent it to him, and he was like, dude, you have to turn this into a book, because he read it. And so I was like, all right, it's pandemic, I'm not working.
What the fuck else do I have?
The fucking else do I do? So I just started writing just because I had nothing else to do.
That's
and
fantastic.
2.5 years later, I had a book.
Yay.
So I didn't set out to write it. Yeah. But if I had set out to write it, knowing then what I know now, I would have done it because of the healing process that writing did for me. And I don't just mean healing from any kind of relationship, but I'm talking about healing personally. And so I got so much joy out of writing this book and getting my thoughts down and diving deep into myself like I had previously done, but doing it on paper is a very different experience. Yes. And I gotta say, I was forever changed in a good way by writing this book. It left a permanent mark on my soul. Wow. And I mean, the book is about seeking experiences, and the writing of the book was in itself in that same vein. It was doing something I absolutely sucked at and had to learn how to get better at it. And I'm lucky enough that I've done well enough I could hire people to teach me how to write. I took a writing class. So I just can't believe how happy I got writing this book.
Amazing. What an amazing side effect.
Yeah.
And I will say also, one of the side effects that I found amazing, because I went into it expecting to read about freaky sex and the ups and downs of that, and also found a profound connection to your connection to nature and extreme sports, which is something that I had not only just not an interest in, I was just like, what sort of idiot is... I was like, this is like a thing. White people are just like, my life is not dangerous enough. I'm like, be black for a week, okay? Y'all would not need to fucking climb fucking mountains when you're just worried about a fucking cop on the corner, right? I was just like, really going out for it. But what was so remarkable was reading your descriptions of it, and I see it was part of the, I hate to use the word device because it has a potentially negative connotation, but just straight up in the terms of the devices utilized in order to make the story alive. The juxtaposition between your adrenaline junkie lifestyle and this really hooked me into it, because as someone who has done BDSM and kink shit, which is definitely extreme sport, right? Yeah. But I always justified it by saying, well, it is a risk, but it's like a moderate risk. Like, I'm not gonna die if someone throws a whip badly. I could have a broken bone, I could have severe bruising, I could have internal bleeding, but I'm not going to die if I make a mistake, as you described, your near-death experience, at least one, I'm sure you've had others.
Been a couple.
To realize that was part of your makeup and the why really illuminated something for me. And then I was able to look at your sexual journey and your exploration of your own boundaries and pushing your boundaries. And the way that you did it in such an open and childlike way, where you were genuinely just like, let's just see what the fuck happens, which is what kids do. Yeah. Which is why kids are fucking awesome. And which is part of the reason why I appreciate that part of myself, because I'm still like that. Like, I I've never lost that because I'm like, I still feel like I'm about 12. I'm just like, fuck it, just do it.
Just do it. Someone should use that as a slogan. Just do it.
And to make it clear, I want to also underscore the fact that your now former wife was part of this process for you. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Well, it's interesting. I'm trying not to give too much of the book away, but when I started writing, we weren't talking because our separation was fairly fresh. Mm-hmm. But eventually, we started communicating again. And then when I let her know I was expounding on the essay she had read 6 years earlier, she was all about it. I got to say, she really was incredibly supportive. She is a writer as well, and she thought I had a really good story to tell. There was a lot of healing that went on with both of us, and I mean, she has admitted a lot of things to me, and we've had some really good discussions around it. So it was part of the healing process for me, not intending to. It just became part of the healing process. And you know, when someone knows you as well as we know it, she and I know each other, she also held me to account. When I was bullshitting, she was like, "This is bullshit. You're bullshitting. Come on." I was like, "Yeah, all right. That's a good point. I am." So I feel very grateful that she was involved at the level she was.
It's really great.
Yeah.
It's really very good. And I will say, again, not to give too much of the book away, but it really very much is a study in this somewhat unexpected dynamic of a couple who have an open relationship and are doing the open relationship thing. And the issue is that one person really has a far more radical idea of what openness means than the other. Mm-hmm. And the presumption often is that it is like men out there doing the like psycho beast must consume all candy with both hands at all times attitude, when it was her.
It was her, yeah, it was her, not me. And well, it's funny when, you know, in the book when we meet and we're sort of getting to know each other, and we're talking, and I'm here. Oh, let me tell you what I've done. And she's like, "Oh, that's adorable. That's cute. You've had threesomes. Aww.
Welcome to my bukkake party."
Exactly.
So it was really remarkable for me. What was funny for me is that I'm reading it, and I'm also reading it for other people because it's how my brain works. Because for me, I have no issue. I'm like, okay, you want to fuck everyone at any point, at any time, whatever, blah, 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 great, fine. I don't have any reaction to that. That doesn't freak me out. That doesn't upset me. That doesn't make me go, or whatever. Where I started having the issue was the way it was dealt with within the dynamic of your relationship. And that was where I started the phone throwing. Because for me, as someone who has spent a lot of time thinking and studying and talking about negotiating relationships, right? Like this is something as a kinky person that is core to who we are. Like you sit down and you make time and you're like, how are we going to do this? How is our dynamic going to be? Like if you're in a power dynamic, for example. And seeing a non-kink couple where it's not about power exchange, it's about like how you're living your lives. We need to have arrangements in place. And seeing what was for me a lower than I would have liked level of empathy for the person who is struggling in the relationship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so maybe it's because I'm a squishy heart person, but my thing is, who is the person who's struggling more? You give him a little more, you know? Like if someone in a relationship is having a problem with something, my thing is like help them out. Help them up. Help them to see where their problem is, versus what this seemed to be, which was someone who was a very powerful woman saying, get your shit together, you pathetic man.
Okay. She never used the words pathetic man, but she definitely said get your shit together.
She did, but there's several quotes where she's like, oh, your poor widow male feelings sort of thing.
That's right. She says, oh, you poor men with your fragile egos.
Yes, so fragile's not pathetic.
Yeah, you're right. And that was very early on in our relationship. But, you know, it's funny. She and I have talked about this. And we were both the right people for each other at that moment. I'm something of a masochist, not in a BDSM way, but in terms Well, no, in a physical way. Like I like
this also ties into
so right. So the extreme sports, mountain climbing, like extreme mountain climbing, requires a certain amount of self-flagellation. I mean, like you are just it is suffering to an extent. And when you're training for such events, the Eastern European coach who screams at me that I suck, I'm going to die if I don't train harder, you pathetic little man, that's the coach that works. That's the coach that works best with me. So in this particular situation, her coldness of like, get your shit together, that actually works way better with me than someone who goes, oh, let me hold your hand while you get through. Like, that just doesn't work for me. The flip side of that was, if I had been someone who needed hand holding, she would have walked.
No, well,
and that
worked.
Right. And so, then that's her failing, or I'm not going to comment on that.
I'm not calling it a failing. Like, to me, when people have different approaches to how they cope with dynamics, it's not a failure, it's a mismatch.
But in this case, it absolutely was a match, because the way she thought, her complete lack of empathy, forced me to turn the mirror inwards in ways I probably wouldn't have if I had been with anyone else.
So you find that as a benefit?
In this particular situation, it was a benefit. And again, I'm not suggesting that lack of empathy is a good quality to have. I'm just saying at that point in my life, in this relationship, it did work, and it was the right.
It's not that she was like a sociopath. It was in regard to this particular aspect of your relationship.
Right.
She was not super sympathetic.
And I talk about in the book her background a little bit of why she was that way. You know, she had her own issues growing up, and I respect that. And we definitely had a different childhood. But she was sort of fed up with guys trying to control her. Like, no, men always try to change me. I'm a slut. This is what I like to do. You can't deal with it, and you want to be with me. You got to solve that.
I'm laughing because she is literally the only, of the people I know personally, the other two people I know who are at the level where she is, at that degree of true freedom, are men.
Mm-hmm.
And I have observed them. And the thing is that what's fascinating is that they are both on the sensitive new-age guy snag spectrum of masculinity, which is hilarious to me because I know that was part of, there was a discussion in the book about your journey and finding out where in the spectrum you sat.
Right.
And where was comfortable for you and what was not comfortable. Because especially the public aspect of that is what is difficult.
Right.
If you are someone who's like, if my partner is having sex with other people, that in and of itself was not your sticking point. Like, it didn't seem the fact that she was having sex, was how it was brought up to you. It seemed like that was
both were an issue, and I had come from relationships where there was flexibility in that we might have another woman in the bedroom, or we might swap with a couple. That was my experience. I had never been in a relationship where my girlfriend, wife, partner was going out and having sex on a one-on-one basis with another guy. And that was that at first I was in the don't ask, don't tell. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to think about it. But then she is a person who was very published. She was a sexual activist. I mean, she's a sex educator. And she was very clear that if we are going to be together, this non-monogamy is public. Yeah. And wow, that's when the journey really began, when I had to consciously accept that and make the decision, okay, we're going to be public, and I'm just going to try and walk this line and see what it's like. And that's where the masculinity debate really began.
Which is so fascinating to me, because the questions seem to always be framed in the how can you let your partner, how can you let your wife, how can you sit at home while you're whatever. And I'm like, I'm so fascinated by this, because that language is language that I'm comfortable with in the master-slave community, in the dominant and submissive community, but in the default world, when I hear people say that, I'm like, wait a second, she doesn't belong to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't belong to her. They're having a partnership. How the fuck, who do you think you are? And that enraged me. Like, that was my first phone throwing moment, was other people like, are you a woman? She's what the fuck is this?
I know. I mean, you have to understand, too, I'm coming from this world of competitive extreme sports, where you want to talk about aggro, male, dominant, kind of whose balls are bigger world. That's the world I'm in. And all of a sudden, everybody knows my girlfriend, wife is out fucking other guys, and they're like, what the fuck?
Here's the thing that kills me. At no point, and because you won't be surprised, I counted, there were 11 instances through the book where there was a mention of my partner, my girlfriend, my whatever, having sex with another man, with no follow-up on the fact that you were also free to, and not just free to, encouraged to, engage with other women.
Very encouraged to.
And so why are all of these men, why aren't they patting you on the back going, hey man, you can go out and bang anyone you want as well? Why is it that it's fine for you to be out fucking whoever you want, but the moment your partner is also fucking who she wants, it's a problem?
Exactly. And I talk about this in the book, because all of a sudden my eyes were opened to the hypocrisy and how the world looks at my masculinity based on the behavior of my female partner. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, and not only that, it's like, shit, I've been buying into this. Like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Like, it was like you're looking at a candlestick your whole life and you see, wait, this is two faces. It was just like, oh my God, I was totally blind to this. So, in the beginning of the book, when I'm presented with this choice, am I going to be with this woman or not? And the book is about seeking the risk. It's about going towards the experiences in life, going towards the things that challenge you. And I knew, Jesus, this is going to challenge me in ways I can't even fathom what's going to happen. But I know this journey, I'm going to come out the other side, a better version of myself. And that was the draw. I was like, I'm going to learn things. I'm going to see blind spots I didn't even know existed. And that's a perfect example of one. And I'm going to just give you another story.
Yeah.
Same guy, in the book, there's that quote, you let other guys fuck your woman, right?
Your woman.
Same guy. 10 years later.
Yeah.
And we were in the car driving to a client. And we started talking, the book's coming out. Oh, no, so the book is coming out. I'm talking. And he's one of my best friends, and he says, I really would like to have sex with other women, but there's no way I could deal with my wife.
Bubba bingo.
Like, no way I could deal with my wife doing it. And he said, you're a stronger man than I. And at that moment, I understood, like, in the 10 years, he had changed his vision. He realized his own feel. Like, the fact that, and I had always like, the world looks at me as a weaker man. That was what I was dealing with at the time. And all of 10 years later, he's like, you're a stronger man than I. And I was like, you know what? I am a stronger man. I mean, in this particular, in this instance. Yeah. And that felt really good, though, for someone who had started out as this, what the fuck, to be like, wow, you're well done. You're a lot stronger than I am. So it was just kind of cool journey that he went on.
Well, and also, you can see, even before he's read the book, your relationship with him has shifted his perspective.
Totally.
And this is, to me, the reason to be open about your shit. Because there are millions of people struggling, feeling like they're the only ones with insert problem here.
Right.
And they never are. One of the things that my storytelling mentor told me when I went to my first performance, storytelling for performance class 1 billion years ago. And she is an amazing Cajun woman from Louisiana, amazing fucking riveting storyteller. And I was struggling with whether or not I should talk about kink. I had started off doing most of my work about childhood shit because I got hours. I got like 18 solo shows I could do just about like ages 0 to 16. And I said, I don't know that I should talk about this because it's really specific. Most people haven't done this. So I feel like I have to go and explain so much before I can even talk about what's actually happened, because no one's going to know a safe word or a dungeon or St. Andrew's Cross or any of these terms. And what she said was, the more specific, the more individual, the more personal, the more universal. And that is so fucking true. And I found that with BDSM, I found that with addiction, I found that with everything, with weird sex, every relationship. The more I talk about the weird thing that happened to me at 4 a.m. on a street corner in South London, everyone's like, even if they haven't had their heart broken in a roundabout in South London at 4 a.m., they have had their heart broken. They have been away from home. they have had someone they love look at them and destroy them with 3 words. You know, like everyone has this universal thing, and humans seek connection. And this is what's so fantastic about this story. The story that you reveal here is that everyone reading it will find themselves somewhere. Even if they find themselves on the side of your friend who was like, how could you let your woman fuck someone else? So everyone will find someone of themselves here. If it's the folks who have had partners who can't keep up with their sexual exploits, if they had tried to keep up with someone else's sexual exploits, and it might not even be sex, it could be anything. You know, like if you had a partner who's like, you know, I want to stay at home, that would be miserable for you.
Yeah.
You know, so all of these things, the sex part is very juicy, it's very impressive, but it underscores how we need that connection and how we need to have those things in common and how difficult that journey was. Like, how long were you guys together for?
About 9 years, 10 years.
That is a chunk.
Yeah.
That is a solid, fully realized relationship.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and a successful one.
Absolutely successful. I mean, successful beyond my wildest dreams. Forget the fact that the relationship was good. What I learned about myself in the relationship, and which is obviously expounded upon in the text. And I shuddered to think if I would have missed out on all that learning.
And I also hope that folks who are at, you know, points in their lives chronologically behind us will pick it up and read it, because it has so many lessons for ways to embrace and just jump on top of shit when you have the flexibility, and just don't let things fucking pass you by.
Yeah, I mean that is the heart. The heart of the book is seek the risks, not the reward, right? You're looking for the experiences in life. I mean, obviously you have a goal you're trying to achieve, whatever that goal is, but it's the journey of getting to that goal that's where the real enjoyment, the real learning, and the harder it is to achieve the goal, the sweeter it's going to taste when you get there.
And it's fascinating because I have a, you know, not dissimilar parallel, but in the flip side, which is looking for a steady, solid relationship for myself within the parameters of a power exchange dynamic, and then also just saying, you know what, fuck it, if I can't have that, that's okay. Just having certain criteria and a baseline of the sort of person I needed in my life, and that was an 18-year journey. And it is not as though I was sitting on my ass for those 18 years.
No,
I was exploring. You know, I had several really beautiful, amazing relationships that definitely got me to the place where I was ready for this. I don't mean, what word was I going to use? Experience. Because Georg is definitely an experience. And I agree. I would not have been ready to deal with the sort of person he is had I not had years of other relationships that showed me what I did not want and showed me the things that did work. You know, and I was like, wow, this part is really great. This part is fantastic. And some of us were pushing boundaries as well. The last relationship I had before Georg was a long distance poly relationship with someone who was already married. And those were things I was like, absolutely not. Go fuck yourself. But the chemistry was so insane. And I very rarely have that chemistry with men. Like, it's for me to feel submissive towards someone else, it's a lot. And it's not even like they just have to be super manly, it's just a chemistry thing. Mm-hmm. And generally, the men that you find in the BDSM kink and leather community like to get themselves titles and presume that they are now going to be doms. And I'm like, you are not, because I could destroy you with my side eye. So I'm not really interested in you. You don't scare me, and you don't delight me. Like, you can do one of those two things to catch my interest. And so, having had that relationship and seeing how pushing myself a little bit into something that wasn't on paper right, you know, actually led me to do what I needed to do, which was to end a relationship that was otherwise good because my needs weren't being met. And that was the final lesson I needed to learn. Because I needed to come into my relationship with Georg ready to look him in the eye and say, if you fuck me over, if you fuck this up, I'm out.
I'm actually getting scared right now. It's like you're looking in my eyes while you're saying that. I'm like, hey, I'm not Gaylord.
But you know what was amazing is that his response to that was he got teary-eyed and was like, thank you. Because I'd had other relationships with women. His third wife literally married him so that she could be married to, like, famous composer guy. Because he was, like, on the way up, and she was like, this is what I want. So grabbed him, squirted out the kid, did the thing. So for him to have someone who said, I don't care about your lifestyle, fine, you're jetting all over the world, famous weirdo composer, don't give a fuck. Because if I am not going to bed and waking up feeling all right about who I am and who you are, this is bullshit. No amount of money, no number of hats, and this is saying a lot. No number of hats is going to buy my happiness. Hats can buy forgiveness.
Well,
Let me just put that on paper.
I'm fair. Hey, we do have to live. Well, you were far. I'm finally where you're far ahead. You were far ahead of me. Now I've finally caught up to you, and now I know what I want. But when I met Jane, all names are changed in the book because it's written anonymously. When I met Jane, I had no idea. I had some relationships, but I hadn't had like that deep connection with someone. And beyond that, it was a relationship style I'd never really even. So I was so far away from anything I knew, but it was risky and scary, and those are feelings I understood. And so, luckily, I had all these years of competing and participating in extreme sports. I was like, all right, that's the only way I'm going to get through this. Was looking back is like using that
parts of your life that apply to this challenge.
Yeah,
that is incredible. To say, what, how can I handle this? And then to draw on your experience and to say that this has emotional resonance for me. I've done this before. Pattern seeking, very human, but also something that we miss a lot.
Fear, I understand. Well, you said something in a previous podcast. I don't remember which one it was, but you talked about uncertainty and how that makes you really uncomfortable. And whereas I try to exist in that place of uncertainty, being okay, right? It's like, I think one of the lines in the book is, I need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where you are in climbing or base jumping or extreme snowboarding. You're constantly in this state of, it's a little good. You just gotta roll with it. You don't have that absolute secure sense of feeling when you're sitting on the couch watching television and knowing you're totally safe. So I had to take that, understanding that feeling, and apply it to my relationship. This feels really scary, and I don't feel safe, but I've been in that emotional state before, just not when sex was concerned.
I'm so mesmerized by that, because I see the world as perpetually on the verge of destroying me somehow. Yeah, like when you mentioned sitting on the couch and you're safe, I'm like, I wish I could remember the woman's name, African-American woman who was sitting at home safe on her couch when the cops came out and served the wrong warrant.
Sure, yes,
so
absolutely.
Horrible freak accident. It doesn't happen every day, but every day there is someone who looks like me, who's just minding their own fucking business, Like, this is the thing. I do not exist in a place where I feel safe and comfortable on flat ground walking down the street.
Right.
Because at any moment, some white lady could decide that I, molested her child and start screaming for police. And so I'm so fascinated by the idea of desiring a relationship where uncertainty is there waiting for you when you open the door to come home. Like that. I'm just like, even now I'm just like, oh my God, 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 now.
I also want to be clear that the book is somewhat of a caricature of my life, in that I accent some of the things that are the good story, and I have minimized it. I mean, the relationship had a lot of really amazing things.
About the sex part, so of course that's going to be the focus.
Sure, but I'm just saying there's a lot of really great. If it hadn't been so good, if the good parts hadn't been as good as they were, I probably wouldn't have had an appetite for the journey I was on.
I felt like that was clear. I felt like the moments that you landed on the ordinary stuff actually was where I really saw that.
Right.
When you mentioned, I just thought it was so lovely, you just admiring her shopping in the supermarket. I was like, see, that's so delightful. Yeah. That's what I want to hear from people about their partners, or just their existence brings them joy. Mm-hmm. Like this is something I love about Georg. Like, I would never have expected some the little white Austrian dude would just be so adorable and sweet and lovely to me. And I'm just like, oh my God, I cherish this bastard. Like, I would fucking cut down a fucking field of children to save his life if that's what was necessary. And it is the ordinariness. It is not. It is. I'm not in love with the fact that he is a famous composer. I'm in love with the fact that he can't find the milk in the refrigerator. I'm less in love with it when I got my good position in the lounge,
right?
And he's like, "Come find the milk." I'm like, "Oh my god." Take a picture of the fridge and bring it over to me.
Yes, I'm on the couch and I'm comfortable.
This is the reality of Diaz and no one knows. Is it actually like, I'm like, when the slave is resting,
Right.
she rests, okay? We gotta wait. We have breaks. We have a union, actually.
Yeah.
I'm like, half an hour final report. If you can get off this couch when we're goddamn tired to find them out. What else do you want to say about this book?
What else do I want to say? Oh, I don't know. You said you had tons of questions. I was like, what are the questions? Well, you put me on the spot.
The reason is because I actually, like, when you said, I don't want to give it away, I'm like, oh my god, a lot of my questions are pretty specific to stuff in the book.
Well, that's okay.
Like, I mean, giving stuff away that's specifically about.
That's, if we have to give away, listen.
Well, so, for example,
your questions are going to be probably super intelligent.
Okay, so some of it is sort of generic because I want to talk about your experience of the sex party scene in New York. That I had a very miserable experience in when I tried to enter in, because there was no room for fat brown people or older people. There were 3 parties that we were not accepted to. You have to send like your picture and a little thing about yourself, and 3 different times they just said no, thank you, and that was really rough for me because I have no self-esteem. I have a little tiny, like, embryonic that I protect fiercely. And this is part of my recovery. And as an alcoholic, self-esteem is a fucking thing. Right. And in this scenario, especially because the only reason I was putting myself in this position in the first place was to try to find places for Georg to play and have fun. Like, I would never. It's not my shtick. I'm not a voyeur and I'm not an exhibitionist. And so, to be rejected by people I didn't even want to engage with.
Right.
Was so eviscerating to me. And then there was another group out in Brooklyn. What is it? They have a whole house of
Hacienda?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were super excited and so thrilled. They were like, "Oh my gosh, please come, we're partying, come, taking the whole thing." And then we wound up pariahs. There were, for example, the second half of the party, we found a little space in one of these rooms downstairs, and we're doing a little spanking, like nothing super serious, just whatever. And person after person, group after group, would walk into the room, take a look, and walk out. And just leave, And then the room next door to us had a tiny white girl who was being tickled, and 75 people are jammed in here to watch that. And I get it. I am not under any illusion that, like, a fat middle-aged black woman is appealing to the default majority. I get it. I do not lose sleep over it because I have someone who, like, cannot keep off of my ass or boobs. I'm fine. I am fine. But I was personally humiliated. And so I'm wondering, like, as the hot white guy who is attending these parties.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
What is that? Tell me about those experiences, because this is an experience. When Gary talks about the experiences that he never had, I will never have that experience. I will never be at the party sought after by people. So I'm wondering how that felt for you.
That's a rather embarrassing question, but
well, you brought that shit on yourself, Mr. Masochist.
Well, if you recall from the book, my first sex party experience was pretty horrifying. I won't give that away. So, not going to say it was all roses by any stretch of the imagination. It was a learning process, and there was some emotionally.
But the party part itself was not the difficult part. Outside of your own learning curve, let us say.
I mean, being who I am at a party, look, I was with a woman at these sex parties who was on the more traditional desirable spectrum, and Eastern European, tall, thin, slender, dressed really well, and absolutely was a total slut, right? So very popular, and being able to be at that party with someone like that meant that I had a certain cachet, which had nothing to do with who I was. It was just,
which is again,
Yeah.
fucking gross.
At
But
some
on the
level.
other end of the spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah. So would I have had once now, again, the initial experience, as was described in the book, is fairly terrible. The book is a journey, and then the sex party
I'm
experience.
also assuming that you had fun at sex parties.
Absolutely, there's a chapter in the book called "Hitting My Stride," which is once I finally transcended, the 3-year journey to get to the point where I was finally, okay, I'm doing this extreme non-monogamy at the level that my partner wanted, and I'm there now. And once I'm there, we're going to sex parties, and I'm describing the sex parties towards the end of the book of just fuckfests of, at this one sex party, it's actually, it's funny, I toned it down. I described the sex party where I had sex with 6 women at one party, and at one time women are just taking turns on me, and I'm like kissing someone else. The reality is, we went to 2 sex parties that weekend, one on Friday night, one Saturday night, and I actually slept with 9 women over the weekend. So,
how was your penis not chapped?
condoms. So what was it like? It was unbelievable. It really was amazing. And once I was in that zone of being very comfortable in my skin and being comfortable with my partner, behaving how she was going to behave, and us showing up as a couple. And also by then, we had been going to sex parties for 3 or 4 years and had built up, there's a deep community around it. And you get a certain reputation. So it was really fucking fun going to these parties. Like that, yeah, it was unbelievable. But at the same time, and as I grew and transcended, I also realized that I started wanting that less and less. And I talk about the experience that one night with 6 women and being like, I would have rather had 6 nights spread over the entire year than just the complete impersonally. I don't even know their names. I remember one of them, and that's not where I want to be now. Yeah. At the time, it was fantastic and great.
This is what I told Garrick about, the whole hung face thing, because he definitely has the sensation that there's a hole in his life that will never be filled because he did not have the opportunity to do the whole phase, the sex parties, the crazy, whatever. And obviously we had different experiences, but my experience was, it was fun for a while, and then I was done. It wasn't as though this was something, and I honestly can't say it changed my life. I honestly can't say that. If I look back and I say, if I had not had whole phase 1, 2, and 2.1, let's say I look out that there was 2.1, I think I would have still been fine. I think I would have still had a wonderful life, and I still would have done that I wanted to do. Versus sitting up on Craigslist every 3rd day being like, who will I play with this evening?
It's funny, actually, I'm not sure I would have been. Yeah, I'll disagree with you. I'll say, for me, I'll disagree with me. Yeah, I needed, relationship was absolutely
my
entire life has been, and I'm very clear about this in the book, I have this incredible fear of missing out and on experiences. I'm just I want experiences, and you speak about sex. My God, I want all those experiences that I want. There's definitely experiences with sex I don't want. And I recognized, and I'm very clear in the book, that being with Jane opened a door that I knew I was going to have a lot of trouble opening myself. And having a partner who is committed to that level of sexual exploration meant lots of opportunities. So there was a Faustian bargain with this relationship for sure, but and I did care about her a lot. It wasn't just a Faustian bargain, but yeah, I wanted that. I didn't want to look back and be like, oh man, I missed out. I wish I had done X, Y, Z. And I will say this to your esteemed husband: I will never, ever be a world famous musician, and that is a hole in my life. So we all make choices. It's
so well. This is what I find endlessly fascinating: is the value that people place upon sex, sexual exploration, and sexuality. And what's fascinating to me is that there's a break between what we say is okay in terms of sex and what people want, and then what's acceptable, and then what we share. When Gail came out, for example, and was like, I'm going to talk about being kinky, there was an entire segment of the contemporary music world that was like, is this some sort of publicity stunt? Why the fuck are you talking about this? You know, whereas his point was, I'm talking about this so that the next generation of people after me don't wait until they're 60 to free themselves. And that's the point, is that sometimes people do need permission. You need examples. You need people to show you. And this is why I told him, similar to, you know, Jane in your situation, we can't be in the closet. We have to be out.
Yeah. And bravo on Jane for being who she was. I got to say, you know, because of women like her and you, right?
But if you'd been able to conduct this relationship outside of the public eye, it would have been very different.
It would have been very different. Absolutely would have been very different. It would have been a hell of a lot fucking easier.
You wouldn't have those conversations with all of your peeps. You certainly would not.
I was really judged. I was openly judged.
Here's my question. The judgers, did your opinion of them shift at all? The people who are judging you? Are they all still in your life in the same way?
Well, I wouldn't say all the judges. How about this? I didn't lose any close friends due to judging.
Yeah.
There are people I don't talk to anymore who judge me, but my friends, and I'm also clear in the book about how important deep friendship is to me. And there's a reason why I keep certain people around, and hopefully that's the same reason they keep me around, is because they're really quality individuals. And it's interesting how someone who's completely non-judgmental about everything in life, all of a sudden you talk about sex relationships, that non-judgmental goes out the window.
Well, there are perverts who will, in the midst of perving, look at your perversion and be like, ew.
It's weird how there's that sex means, oh, you can be that thing you're not supposed to be. We can judge about sex because it's sex. Like, what the fuck?
I can't. The thing is, like, when other sexual outlaws are judging you for like your type of sex, that's when I go, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, hypocrisy.
You know, so many perverts who are like, race play. I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you know who has never given me any shit about even talking about or doing kink that involves race and all that stuff? You know who's never given me any iota of shit? Vanilla people. Not one non-kinky person has given me shit. Not one.
That's interesting.
Because they're like, well, it's kink, right? Like, that's where you do that freaky shit. And I'm like, thank you. Yes, indeed. Except when it comes down to people's comfort level, and this is the thing, it's clear, you push the comfort level of what cishet men in America think manliness is. And clearly it also involves a proprietary hold on their part.
Yeah, and again, it was not, obviously, I never thought those words to myself, the words I never said to myself, oh, my masculinity is based on a proprietary hold on my partner, right? But I thought it, and I did not realize. I had no idea. So
you're just understood with sex. What I've been trying to yell at people about racism for my whole fucking life. Remember those Palmolive commercials? Dishwasher. You're already soaking in Palmolive. You're soaking in racism. You're soaking in sexism. You're soaking in the subjugation of women. And so why would you articulate that? You would not.
Yeah.
But it's so brilliant that, like, over the course of this relationship, that you saw that.
Yeah. That's what the book is about. It's about seeing.
Against it.
Yeah. Seeing all those things.
This is why the thing is so cool. The book is not just about you and sex. It's about fucking acceptance. It's about joy. It's about fear. You know, all of these things that are told through the lens of, you know, almost falling off a cliff and, you know, watching your wife
get fucked by
these guys.
Yeah.
Which for me personally, you know, as someone who does have kind of a little bit of a tough time with this, even on the like nothing at all scale of he's going to go off and have like a play date with someone, but my main fear is concern that someone will do something that will hurt him, that he will be sad, that he will be damaged, that his emotions will be negatively impacted, or that someone will do something that will harm him. Because then I get to sit on the back end having not had the fun at the sex party, and then I have a week to pull him out of the hole of his stress about the sex party, about the things that, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I guess if I were out doing the same shtick, it would, this isn't part of the thing, right? When you are in an open relationship or any type of openness, it's very important for all people in the queue, in the polycule, or whatever it is in the relationship, to be doing the stuff. It's very important. If one person is off partying and having a good time and the other person is not fulfilling that aspect of themselves, it's a really easy
If they want to.
resentment trigger.
Right. I mean, I can see relationships where one person loves to go and go crazy, the other one just doesn't want to. And then I assume that's okay, maybe? I don't know.
I have not observed this. Because here's the
I don't
thing,
know.
if that's not in your desire pool,
Right.
why would you be with that person?
Yeah.
And if it's in your desire pool, but to a lesser amount, you can do that. Like that.
Yes.
I feel like that is feasible. But it should be, I think the most optimal scenario is when someone says, this is what I like, and the other person's like, hey, you know what, I like that too. Let's see how we can balance that so both of us are getting our needs met. For me, it's difficult because I don't have other people I'm playing with. I have made an effort. I did. I took my time, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna, because I'm just so, it's not that I'm picky, it's that I just don't vibe well with people because I'm a fucking weirdo. And the last 3 times I have like worked up the guts to say, I think you're interesting and I would be interested in playing with you, I have been lovely, wonderful human beings, but turned down. And that's completely fair. But like at that point, my thing is, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm just not going to do this. I don't do well with rejection. So part of my thing is I'm not doing it because it depresses me to get rejected. I'm just so done with it. And so, you know, and the other stress is there's a stress in being approached. Because if someone approaches me and I'm just not feeling it, then I have to say no thank you, which breaks my heart.
Because you have empathy.
And I'm just like, oh my God. So it's I feel like I'm trapped in this weird corner, but it's really interesting to me. And I sat with that and I was like, is this part of a jealousy thing that, like, you know, am I looking at my Georg has people and I don't? I'm like, no, because if I wanted it and I shifted my expectations, I could easily have that, you know, because there's certainly plenty of people, but I'm like, I don't really specifically need it. So my sort of prickliness is not coming from, because I have sat with it for years. I'm like, no, it's not a resentment. It's not envy or jealousy, because I absolutely love that he's getting what he wants. That is part of my service to him, is to try to make sure that happens. You know, so that's very important. So I mean, I have such an empathy, and I do. I have so much respect for the fact that you pushed yourself that way. And I feel like you were very, and once you, this is the other thing, let me just say this, you were also unable to articulate what you needed.
Totally.
In terms of, so that is also underscored that, because once you did say, like, I wanted a better answer, but I was like, all right, I'll accept this. I'm like, I'm not going to throw my phone. But when you made some adjustments to how you were interacting with your debriefs of the sexual exploits.
Yes.
Right. When you said, this is how I want that to go, I was like, bravo, because this is what we do as covers.
I know. I didn't even understand what was going on.
Right. And this is the thing.
And
you would not have learned that had you not had that horrible stress of
exactly
feeling bad.
Yeah, and there was the vision on the mountaintop.
How long did that take for you to get to the point where you were understanding that what you needed was a time specific?
That was about a year.
Okay,
so
that's not bad.
That's about a year by the end, because I mean the book chronicles that first year of starting out super great and awesome, and then by the end I am falling apart and I can't figure out why, and I don't know what's happening, and I know she doesn't have a lot of empathy for the struggles around this.
Right.
And I mean, what's really funny is until she actually was helping me in reading what I wrote, she had no idea that I went through any of this. I was keeping it all to myself. She had absolutely no.
Relationship. You didn't talk about it.
Well, when the relationship broke up, we didn't talk for a year.
Oh my God.
And then she found out all of this.
Okay, listen, I'm about to slide into my advice shit. One of the most amazing things I learned from my first kink relationship, the first dom I ever, had a relationship with, is that when we were negotiating our relationship, one of the things that we negotiated was how the relationship ends. And when he brought this up, I was like, why are we talking about this? We just met. We're just trying to figure out, this is pretty I was like, it's pretty dark, don't you think? And he said, the fact is, this relationship will end. I will tell you how. You will break out with me. I will break out with you. We mutually break up. You die or I die. Those are the things. It will end.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck. And so he said, I would like for us, while we're in this good spot of enjoying, exploring, and, agreeing to these terms of how we're going to have this relationship, to also talk about how things are going to be when they end. Because at that point, you might not be in the best place to have sympathy and empathy for the other person. And so we had a protocol for the end of the relationship.
That might have been good. Given the way it happened, I don't know if it would have worked in our case, but who knows?
But intention is important, right? Having the intention to say, like, at the end of our relationship, part of it had to do with seeing shit, right? Because if you're living in the same city, you're going to see that person. You cannot avoid them unless you curtail your social life radically.
Right.
So we had agreements in place that, like, even if you're like crying in the corner and I can't deal with this motherfucker, we're going to tell somehow, like, even if it's just a matter of putting a post on, at the time it was alt.com, I'm going to so-and-so, so that you can advise the other person that you are going to be there. There was also an agreement with like a 30, 60, 90 check-in. And at any of those points, you could say, I'm not ready to have a debrief, but a debrief will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you had up until, I think, 6 months to debrief. So the idea of just leaving in a huff and having no conversation. Could I have said fuck you and never picked up the phone? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Had the end of the relationship been, like, abusive or had something ugly happened, then all of that would be null and void. But I really enjoy the idea, the intention of sitting when you're feeling great about each other and saying, we may not feel this way about each other at some point, and that could be transitory or it could be the end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get to that point, let's look back to this day and say, as people who respected each other at this point, let's exit this with some, blah, blah, blah. So that's a little tip.
Okay. I mean, just to be clear, it was a mutual, like, let's give ourselves some time.
Absolutely.
And then, but the point that I was making is that I wasn't sharing what I was going through, partly because I knew she wouldn't give a fuck, but also because I didn't even understand what I was going through. And it took...
Who were you talking to? Who was helping you?
I was talking to a friend of mine, and I thank her in the back of the book. Just call her Chicken, because everyone's anonymous, and we call her Chicken. And another friend of mine, DFG. And, they were...
There was a woman in the book you mentioned who was an ex who it seemed like was very close to you.
It's Chicken.
As well.
That's Chicken. That is Chicken. In the book, I believe I call her Sylvie. Sylvie. No, she's Sylvie.
Yeah.
In the book, she's Sylvie. And she was brilliant. I mean, she knew me really well. I'm very close with all my exes.
Yeah.
I think there's only one. Oh, the one who left me for Jesus. We don't talk anymore. But back to the point you were making about the fact that I wasn't sure. I didn't even know what I needed. I didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't understand. I had this vision of myself as being this incredibly strong, tough guy who, in every relationship I had up to that point, I had been the sex guy, pulling my partner along, my partner sort of pulling me back. And now all of a sudden, I'm in this relationship where I am a fucking sexual novice. Like, this woman's sexual experience and her desires for the relationship were so far above anything I knew that I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know how to navigate it. So, I was figuring out as I went along. And this is 10 years ago, 11 years ago at this point. Once I finally figured out, okay, this is how I need to have some guardrails around it, and we started having shared time because one of her love languages is telling me explicitly about her sexcapades. That was how she got closer to me, but hearing those things were destroying me. So we had to figure out a way to sort of make that. I have to...
Because, like, it's this would delight me to know.
I know, but it's fun. Like, Jesus, I came home from one of my trips, and I come to the apartment, and I was like, "Whoa, why is the floor slippery?" And she's like, "Oh, sorry, we spilled silicone last night, silicone lube from the gangbang." I was like, "Oh, cool." That's great. So we had this rule that she would only play while I was out of town. It was like a don't ask, don't tell thing. So I was just like, why is the floor so like, oh, great, there's a gangbang here. That's not cool. All right.
So I'm looking at my annotations from the book. There's a quote here that I fully comprehended the difference between wanting to do something hard versus wanting to be able to say that I did something hard. And this is part of the why. And why is at the core of so many questions that I ask people that I'm working with to ask themselves why. Why are you doing this? What is this for?
Right.
And this why, in terms of your athletic exploits, did you consider your own emotional safety at any point during this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I recognized that, oh my God, I am putting myself in unbelievable emotional risk by entering into a relationship with someone who I am very obviously falling in love with.
Yeah.
And just has a completely different relationship with intimacy than I do. And I knew, like, holy cow. And you know, the quote is a, you know, I have some possession of my partner's sexuality. Prior to her telling the world, oh, we have an open relationship, I had a girlfriend who was getting a PhD at an Ivy League university, who spoke 5 languages, who was fucking gorgeous, who just was the most outgoing, intelligent, communicative. Everyone was like, oh my God, jackpot. I was getting all this second party validation. Are you in an open relationship with so-and-so? And I'm like, wow, if I say yes to this, the entire world is going to know that she is now sleeping with other men. And all that second party validation that I had was going to be gone in an instant. And it was gone in an instant. So, and there was the quote is about, okay, being able to say I have this hot, like, versus wanting to do the work to be with this person. Am I climbing to be able to seem more masculine to the other people, or am I climbing because I like climbing? Yes. It was just a real visionary moment for me.
Yeah. And this was, you know, in oh God, brain. This also plays into her why, which was part of the thing that I had a little bit of a hard time with. I'm like, I get wanting to fuck a lot, but this is a lot. I was like, I couldn't think of anything I would want to do that much. Like, I wouldn't want to watch that much TV. I wouldn't want to, but then there was you mentioned here, that she craves sexual novelty and excitement, something she couldn't get from a non-monogamy relationship, no matter how perfect their relationship might be. And I was like, oh, there it is. It's the new stuff. It's a new person. And that's all I needed to hear.
Right.
Like, I was like, why would you? I'm like, oh, because it's what is exciting is the exploration of a new body.
Right.
Because here's the thing. For me, I hate that. I actually am like, I want to bring people in. Like, my ultimate whole phase awesome was when I had 3 or 4 people who I had fucked several times, and I wouldn't have to go and retrain them. I'm like, no, don't clamp down on my fucking clit for half an hour. Like, now I have no feeling there, and now this is useless. You know, so that for me was my thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great. So again, this was an understanding for me. I was like, it's the novelty part. It's like any fetish, paraphilia. You want to build a life where you can have that need met, if it is a central need, and when it is, obviously as it is for her, she figured it out.
Yeah.
Good for her, because goddamn, you have to fight against so much just to have a healthy, open sex life. Period. Not to mention an extreme sex life, right? Jesus Christ. Yeah. You just talked about the fact that you were not sharing the difficulty with her. I was like, how is this not just a red flag, 50 red flags, fucking waving in your face 24/7. The idea that, here's the thing, if there's something I'm having a hard time telling Georg, I literally cannot, part of me doesn't function until it's said. And that's part of my bias, whereas Georg has, you know, an abuse history. And now it's just that I'm fucking psychic, and I'm like, there's something in there. I'm going to keep asking you until you fucking tell me what it is. Unfortunately, that does not bother him, and he does not get defensive and weird. And after the 5th time, he's like, actually, yes.
There is something in that.
Here's the thing. But that took me a long time to get to the point where I would push. I'm not a pusher. If someone's like, I don't know, I'm leaving them be. I don't chase. I don't harass. I'm like, no, I need to chase and harass.
Part of it is that I learned early from her that she had a lot of patience in a lot of other areas, just in this one particular thing. No, you're a fragile guy. And that played into my whole thing. Well, I need to be a tough guy. You know, she's right. I'm fragile. I won't let this fragility dominate me. I'm going to beat it. And yeah, at some level, yes, I agree. Now, it doesn't mean you can't say, I don't want my wife to fuck 10 guys a week. That can be, I just don't want that. If it's truly not what you want.
Right.
But what I recognize is that I want to fuck 10 women a week.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I'm hurt by her fucking 10 guys a week, there's something else going on here.
I'm like, I'm monoamorous. Because that tracks with polyamorous. Because monogamous and polyamorous are not aligned opposites, right? Because one has to do with love, affection, attention, and one has to do with relationship structure.
Right. I see what you're talking about.
So if you're polyamorous, you should be monoamorous. If you're monogamous, you can be monogamous and still be polyamorous. You can be with one person and be in love with multiple people.
I gotcha.
You should precisely indicate what we're talking about. Otherwise, just miscommunication and sadness happens. So sad. Yeah. The rest of the notes are just me being like, "That's so mean. How could you? You're not my friend." And
that's funny. She didn't hurt me. I mean, she did hurt me in certain ways. I hurt her in certain ways. But boy, did we both grow.
Yes.
And God, one of the greatest experiences of my life was this relationship. And then talk about destroying your ego and learning how much you suck at things and going to school and writing. It was a journey in itself that was incredible.
It is really real. This is truly authentic relationships are an extreme sport. Mm-hmm. And it's not for the faint of heart. And I think that's part of the reason why so many relationships are so staid and tepid, because it is living in that uncertainty. There is that fear. There is that moment of, what am I doing? Is this okay? Am I going to be okay? Are they going to be okay? And it's stressful. And I do have a deep amount of admiration for the capacity that you had to live in that uncertainty and to accept it and to maintain your self-respect, even though it was a difficult fight.
Thank you.
You know, against other people who would stomp on it for stupid-ass reasons. This is the thing that I really appreciate. There's no artifice. You don't at any point try to protect your rep. And by doing, like really...
Definitely not.
You have nothing to protect against. Yeah. But so many people would see that as such, as another step towards vulnerability of saying, oh, look at this fucking cuck who are posting his pathetic. And I'm like, or someone who explored and pushed themselves and found actual growth, right? Like this is people pay thousands of dollars and spend entire lifetimes in therapy and don't get what you got from this.
Yeah, I agree. I feel incredibly blessed, and I'm very lucky.
And both of you are, just thoughtful people who, I mean, to me, this is a measure of success, is that you can look at it and say, here's where I grew. Like when people talk about, failed marriages or whatever, like when I tell people, I'm like, your marriages didn't fail. They were just done. They did what they needed to do in their life, and now they're over. If you make it a failure, then you're adding to a list that you don't need to be keeping. You don't need to be sitting there going, where have I failed? Please, stop. Just look at the fact that you succeeded for this amount of time. And then it was time for you to move the hell on.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way, you've succeeded in navigating some really difficult internal shit and having an exciting and challenging relationship that ultimately was beneficial to both of you, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, like all of that. Like, what the fuck? How is that not awesome?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple things that I want to add. Right. First, I want to say that writing the book was one of the greatest experiences of my life, one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I credit a lot of that to my writing coach, who was a friend of a friend and did me a bit of a favor. And so I want to, the Brad Wetzler, bradwetzler.com. If you are, we'll put it in the show notes. Do you have show notes or no?
Yeah, I do. I don't do them. I'm so shit at that. So if you have things, send them to me, and then I will send them to Cody.
I will send them.
Because I suck at this shit. I always tell him, I'm like, I literally pay for the full quote-unquote production package. I'm like, oh,
okay, I'll send it to you. You can send it to him. But anyway, bradletzler.com. And if you're thinking about writing and want to work with someone who has unbelievable experience in the field, please. He did me such a solid. He changed my life. And so if you're thinking of writing a memoir and trying to learn how to write and need help, please reach out. He's incredible.
Like coaching packages?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he does writing coaching packages. It was a gift to myself. And it was one of the greatest gifts I ever gave to myself was working with him. So I want to support that. Secondly, I want to say that one of the reasons I wrote the book anonymously is I was trying to write art that would stand on its own. I didn't want to promote myself. And Jane, I was totally fine being out, and Jane was totally fine being out. There were some other people in the book that I didn't want to, so that was part of it. But also, I just wanted the art to stand on its own. I just wanted to see if I could take the artist out of the art and just make it not about ego, but about just producing something the world enjoyed. And one of the things that I'm not doing is I'm not doing commercialization of it. I am not out there, advertising and that kind of stuff. So I'm looking for ambassadors, and anyone listening to this podcast would like a free copy of the ebook. If you email me 2 weeks after this episode airs, I say, hey, I heard you on All That and Mo. I will email you a free copy of the ebook, and all I ask is if you read it and you like it, please tell people about it. And that is how I'm trying to get it out there.
And if you read it and you hate it, and you want to write an entire essay about why it sucks and post it on Medium, do that too, because
why not?
That actually would be really
Yeah, listen, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And you can find me at seektherisk.net. If you want to just email me. Yeah.
We should say at the beginning.
Sorry, seektherisk.net. If you email me at adam@seektherisk.net and say, hey, I heard you on All That and Mo, I'd love free copy of the ebook. I will send you a free copy.
Fucking do it. People think that I have this power to motivate millions of people to do shit. I absolutely don't. But I would encourage you to do so because A, you're not losing anything but time if you decide to pick it up and look at it. And I truly believe that there is something there for pretty much any thoughtful person, and definitely for any curious person who likes sex.
And adventure sports.
Or if you don't like sex or adventure sports, you should definitely read this book. If you're like, why the fuck are people having extreme sex?
Why do people jump off cliffs?
Jumping off of cliffs and climbing mountains and shit.
You've been listening to All That and Mo. Thanks so much for spending your precious, precious time with me today. My podcast is produced by Cody Crabb. Theme music by Georg Friedrich Haas, as performed by Marcus Weiss. And I look forward to spending time with you again really soon.